The black credit card hit the mahogany desk at the exact same moment as her pale hand. The sharp crack echoed through the lobby. Sienna needed this room to escape her past. Callum needed this room to shelter from the storm. The desk clerk's voice cut through their standoff. Only one executive suite left, and the blizzard has blocked every other route out of town. The hotel lights flickered once, twice, then darkness swallowed everything. In the blackness, the clerk's voice rang out. You have 10 seconds to decide who walks back into that storm, or you share this key. I was here first. Sienna's voice cut through the lobby like glass. The man beside her, tall, weather-beaten parka still dripping melted snow, let out a short laugh. You were on your phone. I was talking to the clerk. Talking? Sienna turned fully to face him. You pointed at a room number on a screen and grunted. Outside, the wind screamed against the windows. The Sterling Hotel had that peculiar hush of old buildings during storms. Thick walls holding back chaos. Chandeliers swayed slightly overhead. The lobby smelled of wet wool and cinnamon from the complimentary drinks no one was drinking. The desk clerk, a young woman with tired eyes and a name tag reading Maya, held up both hands. I understand this is frustrating, but the blizzard warning came earlier than expected. The other hotels in town are already full. We have one room left. I'll pay double, Sienna said. Triple, the man countered. Sienna's jaw tightened. She'd driven 6 hours to get here. 6 hours away from Boston, away from her studio, away from the gallery opening where Thomas Whitmore would publicly announce he was giving the commission to someone else. Someone younger. Someone who hadn't disappeared on New Year's Eve 3 years running because she couldn't handle crowds and champagne and the weight of strangers' expectations. This year was supposed to be different. This year she'd come to this quiet town to restore the painting in peace, finish it by New Year's Day, prove she could deliver. Alone, on her terms, not sharing space with a stranger who smelled like airport coffee and thought grunting counted as communication. The room has 2 queens, Maya offered weakly. You could. The lights went out. For 3 seconds, the world was perfectly black. Then emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in dim amber. The chandeliers hung motionless now, dead. Maya's face looked ghostly in the emergency light. The generator will keep essentials running, but we've lost heating to most of the building. The executive suite is on the corner. It has a fireplace. It's the warmest room we have. Sienna felt something cold slide down her spine that had nothing to do with temperature. She looked at the man, really looked at him for the first time. Dark hair pushed back from his face, sharp cheekbones, eyes that were maybe blue, maybe gray, hard to tell in this light. He was looking at her too, and she saw the exact moment he had the same realization she did. Neither of them was leaving. Fine, Sienna said, but I'm setting ground rules. The executive suite sat at the end of a long hallway on the 4th floor. Sienna's rolling suitcase made a rhythmic thump-thump over the carpet runner. Behind her, the man's footsteps were nearly silent despite his bulk. They hadn't spoken in the elevator. The emergency lighting made everything look sepia-toned, like an old photograph. Sienna had stood in one corner, he in the other, both staring at the brass doors like they might reveal something more interesting than their reflections. Maya had given them 2 key cards. Just try to be civil, she'd said, which felt condescending given they were both adults. The suite was nicer than Sienna had expected. Hardwood floors, exposed brick on one wall, tall windows that should have shown the town square, but currently only showed white. The snow was coming down so thick it looked like static. 2 queen beds sat parallel to each other, separated by a nightstand. A sitting area with leather chairs and a coffee table occupied the space near the fireplace. The bathroom door was open, revealing marble counters and what looked like a clawfoot tub. Sienna walked directly to the bed nearest the window and set her suitcase on it. This one's mine. Works for me. The man, she still didn't know his name, dropped his duffel bag on the other bed. I'm Callum, by the way, since we're apparently roommates. Sienna. She unzipped her suitcase, began pulling out clothes. And we're not roommates. We're two people temporarily occupying the same space due to circumstances beyond our control. Right. Totally different. She could hear the smirk in his voice and refused to look at him. Instead, she methodically arranged her things. Laptop on the desk by the window, toiletries lined up on her nightstand, the leather portfolio containing her restoration tools placed carefully beside the laptop. When she finally turned around, Callum was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. What? Nothing, just noticed you color-code your clothes. He nodded toward her suitcase, where her sweaters were indeed organized from light to dark. I like order. I can see that. He unzipped his duffel and pulled out a camera, expensive-looking, professional. Then another camera, then a tangle of chargers and lens caps and what might have been a light meter. Sienna stared. How many cameras do you have in there? Enough, he looked up. I'm a photographer, travel mostly. I was supposed to fly out of Burlington this morning, but the storm grounded everything. You were going somewhere for New Year's? Something shifted in his expression. Away from New Year's, actually. Before Sienna could figure out how to respond to that, Callum grabbed a faded t-shirt from his bag and tossed it onto the chair nearest the fireplace. His jacket went on top of it, then his scarf. Sienna's eye twitched. What are you doing? Unpacking? That's the shared space. The sitting area is neutral territory. Callum tilted his head. Are we negotiating a treaty? If you want to put it that way, yes. Sienna walked to the sitting area and stood between the two leather chairs. Everything from here to the bathroom is shared. We keep our personal items on our respective sides of the room. Our respective sides? Yes. Callum was quiet for a moment. Then he walked over, picked up his jacket and scarf, and deliberately draped them over the back of both chairs. I'm a sprawler. This is me compromising. Heat flashed through Sienna's chest. That's not compromising. That's being deliberately difficult. No, deliberately difficult would be this. He grabbed the throw pillow from his bed and tossed it onto hers. It was such a juvenile move that Sienna almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she picked up the pillow, walked to his bed, and placed it back exactly where it had been. Ground rules, she said firmly. 1. Respect personal space. 2. Keep shared areas clean. 3. If you need to make noise, give warning. What kind of noise? The corner of his mouth twitched. Sienna's face heated. Phone calls, music, whatever. Just courtesy. Fine, my ground rules. Don't touch my cameras. Don't eat my food. I've got protein bars in my bag and I counted them. And if you snore, I'm sleeping in the bathtub. I don't snore. We'll see. They stood there in the amber emergency lighting, snow howling against the windows, the fireplace cold and empty between them. Maya had been wrong. This wasn't going to be civil at all. You said you'd give warning. Sienna's voice came from somewhere near the bathroom. Callum looked up from his camera, where he'd been reviewing shots from his last assignment, a monastery in Bhutan that now felt like it existed in a different lifetime. Warning about what? Sienna emerged from the bathroom in a cloud of steam, wearing a hotel robe and with her dark hair wrapped in a towel. Her face was flushed pink from heat. The shower. You used all the hot water. There's a tank issue? Callum stood. I took a 5-minute shower 2 hours ago. Well, there's no hot water now. She crossed her arms. And I've been working all afternoon. I needed that shower. Callum glanced at the desk by the window, where Sienna had set up what looked like a small medical station. Tiny brushes, cotton swabs, bottles of liquid he couldn't identify. In the center of it all sat a painting, maybe 12 inches square, the image obscured by centuries of yellowed varnish. "What is that?" he asked, momentarily distracted. "My work." She moved between him and the desk like she was blocking a view. "Don't touch it." "Wasn't planning to." "What kind of work?" "Restoration. I remove old varnish and overpainting to reveal the original artwork underneath." Her voice softened slightly when she talked about it. "This one's a Flemish piece from the 1600s. Or it will be, once I can actually see what's under all this damage." Callum moved closer, despite her defensive posture. He couldn't help it. The photographer in him was drawn to anything visual. "Can I see?" "No. I'm not going to breathe on it. You're dripping snow on my floor." He looked down. His boots had indeed left wet prints on the hardwood. "Sorry, I was just out getting firewood from the stack Maya mentioned." That stopped her. "There's firewood?" "Covered pile in the courtyard. Brought up enough for tonight." He gestured to the small stack he'd placed on the hearth. "Emergency lighting won't last forever. We'll need heat." Sienna's expression shifted, still wary, but less hostile. "That was practical. I have my moments. Don't expect me to thank you." "Wouldn't dream of it." Callum pulled off his wet boots and set them by the door to dry. "But for the record, there's probably hot water now. Tanks in old buildings like this take time to heat up after someone uses them." Sienna blinked. Then without a word, she turned and went back into the bathroom. The door closed with a decisive click. Callum shook his head and went back to his camera. Through the memory card, he scrolled past images of prayer wheels and mountain peaks and monks in burgundy robes. Then he hit a series of shots he'd forgotten about. The Boston Gallery opening from 6 months ago. He'd been there on assignment for an architecture magazine. The gallery itself had been the subject, not the art. But he'd captured the crowd anyway, the way he always did, looking for faces, for moments. And there, in the third shot, a woman in a dark green dress standing alone near a landscape painting, her hand hovering near but not quite touching the frame. Her face was angled away from the crowd, toward the artwork, like she was having a private conversation with it. The resemblance was striking. Callum zoomed in. Same dark hair, same sharp profile, same way of holding herself very still, like she was made of glass. The bathroom door opened. Sienna emerged in clean clothes, jeans and a sweater the color of rust. Her hair was still damp, but no longer wrapped up. "Was that you?" Callum turned his camera screen toward her. "Boston, June, the Whitmore Gallery opening?" Sienna's face went carefully blank. "Why do you have that photo?" "I was shooting the building." "You were in the frame." She stared at the image for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. "I was there for work. Whitmore was considering me for a commission." "Was?" "Still is, maybe. If I finish this piece by New Year's Day." She touched the edge of his camera screen, not quite meeting his eyes. "That's why I'm here. I can't focus in the city. Too many distractions." Callum thought about the way she'd stood apart from the crowd in that photo, the careful distance she maintained. "You don't like gallery events." "I don't like people watching me work, expecting things, asking questions." She pulled her hand back. "This job is my last chance to prove I can deliver. If I miss the deadline, Whitmore will give the contract to someone else." "So you came to Vermont in December." "The isolation helps me think." Callum understood that more than he wanted to admit. "For what it's worth, I wasn't trying to invade your privacy. I delete most of my crowd shots." "But not that one?" He looked at the image again. "No, not that one." Something passed between them in the amber light. Not quite trust, but maybe the beginning of it. Then Sienna's stomach growled audibly. She closed her eyes. "Don't." "I wasn't going to say anything." "You were thinking it." "I was thinking I'm also hungry, and the restaurant downstairs is probably closed." Callum reached for his duffel. "I've got protein bars. Peanut butter or chocolate chip." Sienna hesitated. "I thought you counted those." "I did, but I'm willing to renegotiate the treaty." The smallest smile tugged at her mouth. "Chocolate chip." He tossed her one. She caught it with one hand. Outside, the wind picked up. The windows rattled in their frames. Sienna stood at the window, forehead nearly touching the cold glass. She couldn't see the town square anymore, couldn't see the road she'd driven in on, or the church steeple that had been visible when she first arrived. Just white, endless, swirling white. Behind her, Callum was building a fire. She heard the scratch of a match, the soft crackle as kindling caught. Warm light began to paint the walls amber and gold. New Year's Eve. 3 years ago, she'd been at a different hotel. Different city, same plan. Work through the holiday alone, avoid the parties and countdown in mandatory joy. She'd told her family she had a deadline, told her friends she was sick, told herself that solitude was a choice, not a symptom. Then the fire alarm had gone off at 11:47 p.m. Everyone evacuated to the street in their party clothes and pajamas. Sienna had stood on the corner in her coat and work clothes, holding her restoration kit like a lifeline, while couples kissed and strangers offered her champagne from plastic cups. She'd never felt more invisible. The year before that, her apartment, door locked, phone off. She'd made it to 12:14 a.m. before the panic attack hit. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Just the horrible certainty that she was always going to be alone, that her inability to connect with people the way normal people did meant she was fundamentally broken. And the year before that, "You okay?" Callum's voice pulled her back. Sienna realized she'd been pressing her palm flat against the window, watching her handprint fade in the condensation. "Fine," she said automatically. "You've been standing there for 10 minutes. Had she? Time felt strange in the emergency lighting, compressed and elongated at the same time. She turned away from the window. The fire was going now, flames licking up around the logs. Callum sat in one of the leather chairs, camera in his lap, but he was watching her instead of his screen. "I don't like New Year's," Sienna said. She wasn't sure why she was telling him this. Everyone acts like midnight is some magical reset button, like you can just decide to be different and it'll work. But you don't think it works that way. I think people are who they are. You can't change yourself just because a calendar flips. Callum was quiet for a moment, then, "What if you're not trying to change? What if you're just trying to stop running?" The words hit harder than they should have. Sienna wrapped her arms around herself. "Is that why you were flying out today? To stop running?" "No, I was running too." He set his camera aside. "I don't do New Year's either. Too many people trying to manufacture meaning out of champagne and confetti. I'd rather be in transit, airport hotels, layovers, places where everyone's going somewhere else." "But you got stuck here instead." "Yeah," he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Universe has a sense of humor." Sienna moved away from the window and sat in the other leather chair. The fire warmed her face. Outside, the wind howled like something alive. "My parents used to host this huge party," she said. "Every year. They'd invite everyone they knew, neighbors, colleagues, random people from their book club. I was supposed to help hostess, smile, make small talk, laugh at jokes I didn't find funny. You hated it. I was terrified. All those people watching me, expecting me to be someone I wasn't, someone charming and effortless." She stared into the fire. "When I turned 18, I told them I wasn't coming anymore. My mother cried, said I was throwing away tradition for no good reason. But you had a reason. I couldn't breathe in that house, couldn't think. It felt like drowning in noise and expectations." Sienna's throat tightened. "They still invite me every year. I still say no. And every year I feel like I'm failing some test I never signed up for." Callum leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think the people who need New Year's the least are the ones everyone expects to need it the most. The lonely ones. The ones who don't fit the party mold." His voice was low, almost gentle. "But we're not broken for wanting something different. We're just honest about what we can handle." Sienna looked at him, really looked. at the way the firelight carved shadows under his cheekbones, the way his hands were steady even when his words weren't. "Why do you run?" she asked. "Because staying feels like giving up freedom, and freedom's the only thing I've got that's really mine." "That sounds lonely." "It is." He met her eyes. "But it's mine." The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. In the hallway outside, someone's door opened and closed. Distant voices, then silence again. Sienna pulled her knees up to her chest. "We're quite a pair." "Yeah." Callum's smile was real this time, sad and knowing. "We really are." The painting sat in its pool of lamplight like an artifact from another world. Callum woke sometime after midnight. He dozed off in the chair after dinner, which had been protein bars and crackers from the vending machine Maya had pointed them toward. The fire had burned down to coals. Sienna's bed was empty. She was at her desk, bent over the small canvas, a headlamp strapped around her forehead, casting a focused beam on her work. Her hands moved with surgical precision, dipping a cotton swab in solution, rolling it gently across a tiny section of the painting, examining the residue. Callum stayed quiet, watched. There was something hypnotic about her focus. The rest of the world could have fallen away and she wouldn't have noticed. Every few minutes she'd set down the swab, make a note in a small journal, then start again. The painting itself was still mostly obscured, but in the sections she'd cleaned, Callum could see hints of blue, a specific shade, not quite cobalt, not quite ultramarine, the blue of twilight or deep water. "You're staring." Sienna didn't look up, but her voice wasn't hostile, just matter of fact. "I'm observing," Callum corrected. "Photographers have it. Observing me work after I specifically said I don't like people watching. You also said you couldn't focus with distractions. Seems like you're focusing fine." She did look up then. The headlamp beam hit him square in the eyes and he winced. "Sorry," she adjusted the angle. "I thought you were asleep." "I was. The quiet woke me up." Sienna's mouth twitched. "That doesn't make sense." "It does if you live in airports." Callum stood and moved closer to her desk, careful to stay out of her light. "What is it?" "The painting." "I don't know yet." She gestured to the clean sections. "The provenance says it's Flemish, possibly workshop of Van Eyck, but I'm not sure I believe that. The underpainting technique is different, more fluid." "You can tell that from the brushstrokes?" "I can tell from the way the paint moves. Every artist has a signature, not the one they sign, but the way their hand works. Fast or slow, confident or hesitant. This painter was confident, fearless even." Callum leaned in despite himself. In the clean portions, he could make out what might be fabric, a sleeve maybe, or a fold of cloth. "What's the blue?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out. It might be sky, or water, or clothing." She set down her swab and rubbed her eyes under the headlamp. "The varnish is so thick in places that I'm basically working blind." "How long will it take?" "To fully reveal it? Weeks, normally. But I only have until New Year's Day to get far enough that Whitmore can see what he's buying. Tight deadline." "I'm used to it." But there was tension in her shoulders that said otherwise. Callum wanted to ask why she did this, why she chose work that required such exacting precision, such isolation. But he thought he already knew. It was the same reason he chose to photograph empty temples and abandoned buildings. The same reason he preferred viewfinders to eye contact. Some people spoke better to the past than the present. "Can I ask you something?" Sienna said suddenly. "Sure. That photo you showed me, from the gallery, why did you keep it?" Callum thought about the image, her standing alone, hand hovering near the painting, lost in something the crowd couldn't see. "Because you looked like you were the only real person in the room," he said finally. "Everyone else was performing. You were just there, present, even though you were alone." Sienna's expression was unreadable in the lamplight. "That's a lonely thing to notice. Takes one to know one." She turned back to her painting, picked up a fresh swab. I'm going to work for another hour. You should sleep. Will you sleep? Eventually. Callum recognized the deflection. He used it himself often enough. Instead of arguing, he went to the fireplace and added 2 more logs. Waited until they caught. Then he grabbed a blanket from his bed and draped it over the back of her chair. In case you get cold. Sienna touched the blanket but didn't look at him. Thank you. Don't mention it. He went back to his bed and lay down, still wearing his jeans and sweater. Through half-closed eyes, he watched her work. The gentle motion of her hands. The careful, methodical process of revealing something hidden. Outside, the storm continued. But inside, for the first time in longer than he could remember, Callum felt something almost like peace. Morning came gray and muted. Sienna woke to find herself at her desk, cheek pressed against her journal, neck aching from the angle. The fire had gone out. The room was cold enough that she could see her breath. Callum was already awake, crouched by the fireplace, coaxing new flames from the embers. He'd changed clothes, different jeans, a worn flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His hair was wet like he'd splashed water on his face. What time is it? Sienna's voice came out rough. Around 7. You worked until 3. You were watching? I was in and out. He sat back on his heels as the kindling caught. You talk to paintings when you think no one's listening. Sienna's face heated. I do not. You do. Mostly you were asking this one to, please just cooperate. The corner of his mouth lifted. Very polite. She stood too quickly, and her vision swam. Callum was across the room in 3 strides, hand on her elbow. Easy. When did you last eat? I had crackers. That was 12 hours ago. He guided her to sit on the edge of her bed. Stay there. He rummaged in his duffel and came back with a protein bar and a bottle of water. Breakfast of champions. Sienna took both. Her hands were shaking slightly. From cold or low blood sugar, she wasn't sure. Is the power back? No. Maya called the room phone around 6. Said the utility company is working on it, but the storm's not letting up. We're probably stuck here through tomorrow at least. Tomorrow, New Year's Eve. Sienna bit into the protein bar and tried not to feel the weight of that. 24 hours with this stranger who was starting to feel less strange. Who noticed when she didn't eat. Who kept the fire going so she wouldn't freeze. I need to work, she said. I know, but eat first. Your painting's not going anywhere. She wanted to argue, but he was right. She finished the bar, drank half the water. The shaking eased. Callum went to the window. In the growing daylight, Sienna could see that the snow had drifted against the glass nearly 2 feet high. The world outside was sculpted in white, unrecognizable. I've never been anywhere this quiet, he said. I thought you liked airports. Those aren't quiet. No, but they're anonymous. White noise. This is different. He touched the window glass. This is like the world hit pause. Sienna joined him at the window. Their shoulders almost touched. Does it bother you? Should it? You said you don't like staying still. Callum was quiet for a long moment. Then, maybe I'm tired of running. The words hung between them, vulnerable and unexpected. Sienna looked at him, at the lines around his eyes that came from squinting into viewfinders in sunlight, at the calluses on his fingers from adjusting camera settings thousands of times, at the way he held himself like he was always ready to leave. What are you running from? She asked softly. Same thing you are, probably. The feeling that if I stop moving, I'll have to face the fact that I'm alone. But you choose to be alone. So do you. It wasn't an accusation, just a truth laid out in the cold morning light. Sienna thought about her studio in Boston, the way she kept her schedule packed, her clients rotating, her projects endless. Never time to notice the silence, never space to fill the empty apartment waiting at the end of each day. I'm good at being alone, she said. I'm not good at being with people. What if it's not about being good at it? What if it's just about finding someone who doesn't make you want to run? Her breath caught. Have you ever found that? No. Callum turned to face her fully. But I haven't really looked. The fire crackled behind them. In the hallway, pipes groaned as the ancient building settled. Sienna knew she should step back, return to her painting, rebuild the careful walls that had kept her safe for so long. Instead, she stayed exactly where she was. I need to work, she said again, but this time it sounded like an apology. I know, but maybe, tonight, we could have dinner, real dinner. Maya said there are supplies in the guest kitchen on this floor. Callum's expression shifted, surprise, then something warmer. Are you asking me on a date? No. I'm suggesting we share a meal like civilized people instead of eating protein bars in opposite corners. That's basically a date. It's pragmatism, if you say so. But he was smiling. What time? 7? I'll be here. You live here. Exactly. No chance of standing you up. Sienna couldn't help it. She laughed. Small and startled, but real. Callum's smile widened. Was that a laugh? Are we friends now? We're temporary roommates with a mutual dinner arrangement, that's all. Right, totally different. But when Sienna went back to her desk and Callum returned to his cameras, something in the room had shifted. The cold felt less biting, the silence less lonely. Outside, the storm kept falling. Inside, something else was beginning. Callum, Sienna's voice was strange, flat and careful, like she was trying not to spook a wild animal. He looked up from his laptop where he'd been editing photos, and definitely not thinking about the fact that dinner was in 4 hours and he had no idea what to cook. She was standing at her desk, hands hovering over the painting. Her face had gone pale. What's wrong? I just uncovered the signature. Callum crossed to her in 2 strides. And? It's not Van Eyck Workshop. Her voice shook slightly. It's Vermeer. For a moment, Callum wasn't sure he'd heard correctly. As in Johannes Vermeer. As in girl with a pearl earring Vermeer. As in one of the most valuable painters in history, and there are only 34 known works, and this would be 35. She was breathing too fast. This can't be right. This can't. Callum, if this is real. Okay, breathe. He put a hand on her shoulder and felt her shaking. Walk me through it. What did you find? Sienna pointed to a tiny section in the lower right corner she'd just cleaned. In the focused lamplight, Callum could make out delicate script. Letters in Dutch that might have been a name. I need better light. I need chemical analysis. I need... She broke off, ran both hands through her hair. I need to call Whitmore. No, I can't call Whitmore until I'm sure. But if I wait and it is real, he'll want to know why I didn't... Sienna, stop. She looked at him, eyes wide. First, you can't do chemical analysis in a hotel room during a blizzard. Second, Whitmore doesn't need to know anything until you're certain. Third, the phone lines are probably down anyway. The painting, if someone realizes what this is, who's going to realize? We're snowed in. The hotel staff isn't going to break into our room and steal a painting they don't know exists. He squeezed her shoulder gently. You're spiraling. I'm being realistic. You're catastrophizing. Sienna pulled away from him, paced to the window and back. Do you understand what this means? If this is a real Vermeer, it's worth tens of millions of dollars, maybe more. And it's sitting on a hotel desk in Vermont with no security and no climate control, and it's been sitting in someone's collection for centuries without climate control, apparently surviving just fine. She stopped pacing, stared at him. I'm not saying you're wrong to be careful, Callum continued. I'm saying you can't do anything about it right now except keep working. Document what you find. Take photos if you want. I can help with that. But you can't solve this problem today. Sienna's jaw worked. She looked back at the painting like it might explode. What if I damage it? Have you ever damaged a piece before? No, but I've never worked on something this potentially valuable. So you'll be extra careful, like you always are. He moved closer but didn't touch her. You're good at this, Sienna. You told me yourself, every artist has a signature. You found one that matters. Now you do the work to verify it. That's all. That's all, she repeated faintly. Yeah. Callum, if this is real, my entire career just changed. I know. I could never take a risk like this again. Never work on something without teams of experts and insurance and… That's future Sienna's problem. Present Sienna just needs to get through the next 24 hours. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, how are you so calm? I'm not. I'm terrified for you. But one of us needs to not be spiraling, and you've got dibs. The smallest laugh escaped her, shaky but real. I think I'm having a panic attack. I know. Come here. Callum guided her to sit on the edge of her bed. Head between your knees. Breathe slow. I'm going to get you water. He filled a glass from the bathroom tap, cold but clean, and brought it back. Sienna was still bent over, shoulders rising and falling with deep breaths. Sip, he said, pressing the glass into her hand. She drank, set the glass down, looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. I'm sorry. For what? Falling apart. You didn't sign up for this. Neither did you. That's kind of how getting snowed in with strangers works. He sat beside her on the bed, careful to leave space between them. For what it's worth, I think finding a lost Vermeer is a pretty good excuse for freaking out, if it's even real. Do you think it's real? Sienna was quiet then. Yes, the technique, the signature, the pigments, everything matches. But I need tests to be sure. Need someone else to confirm I'm not seeing what I want to see. Then you'll get those tests, after the storm, after you finish enough to present to Whitmore. Callum bumped her shoulder gently with his, one step at a time. She leaned into the contact just slightly. Thank you. For what? Not thinking I'm crazy. Oh, I definitely think you're a little crazy, but that's what makes you good at this. She laughed again, stronger this time. I'm going to pretend that's a compliment. It is. Outside, the wind howled. The windows rattled. But inside, Sienna's breathing had steadied. Her hands had stopped shaking. She stood, smoothed down her sweater. I should get back to work. You should eat something first. Callum, humor me. You just had a panic attack. Low blood sugar makes those worse. She gave him a long look. Then, you're very bossy for someone who claims to avoid commitment. I'm not avoiding commitment. I'm avoiding settling. Different things. Are they? The question hung between them, heavier than it should have been. Callum stood too. I'll make us lunch. You take a break. Deal? Fine, but I'm working tonight. Even through dinner? Especially through dinner. If this is what I think it is, I can't afford to waste time. Something in his chest tightened. Right, of course. Sienna caught his expression. Unless you already started cooking? No, I was just looking forward to it. Oh, her face softened. We could eat at my desk? While I work? That way I'm not wasting time. Yeah, that works. It shouldn't have stung. It was practical. Made sense. But Callum had been planning to ask her about her family, her favorite places, the things that made her laugh when she wasn't carrying the weight of lost paintings and impossible deadlines. Instead, he'd make sandwiches and watch her bend over her work and try not to feel like he was losing something he'd never actually had. The temperature dropped sharply after sunset. Callum felt it first in his fingers as he tried to load new memory cards into his cameras. Then in his breath, which had started misting in the air. Sienna was still at her desk, headlamp strapped on, working by firelight in the weak glow of her laptop screen. She'd been there for 6 hours straight, stopping only to eat the sandwiches he'd made, peanut butter and hotel jam, the best he could do with the supplies in the guest kitchen. Sienna. It's getting really cold. I know. I'll put on another sweater in a minute. You're already wearing 2 sweaters. Then I'll put on a third. Callum stood and went to the fireplace. The wood pile was down to 3 logs. He'd brought up more from the courtyard earlier, but his stash in the corner was dwindling fast. He added 2 logs to the fire, watched them catch. The flames pushed back the cold for maybe 6 feet. Past that, the room was frigid. "The fire's not enough," he said. "What do you want me to do about it?" Sienna didn't look up from her painting. "Take a break. Get warm." "I can't take a break. I need to finish this section before the light changes." "It's 8 p.m. What light?" "The firelight. It's consistent. If I stop now and come back in the morning, the shadows will be different and I'll lose my place." Callum counted to 5 in his head. "You've been working for 6 hours. And I'll work for 6 more if I need to." Sienna: "Callum, I appreciate your concern, but I know what I'm doing. I'm not questioning your work. I'm questioning your survival instincts." That got her attention. She looked up, headlamp beam hitting him square in the face again. "Excuse me? It's below freezing in here. Actually freezing. You can't work through hypothermia." "I'm fine." "You're shivering." "I'm always cold when I work. It helps me focus." "That's..." Callum bit off the rest of the sentence. Took a breath. "Okay, you want to work? Fine. But you're doing it from somewhere warmer than that desk." "There is nowhere warmer, unless you want me to work inside the fireplace." "The bed." Sienna blinked. "What?" "My bed is closer to the fire. You can work from there. I'll bring your supplies over." "I can't work from a bed. I need a stable surface. I need my setup exactly." "I'll bring the nightstand over. You can use that as your work surface." "Callum, this is ridiculous. I'm fine where I am." "No, what's ridiculous is you giving yourself frostbite because you're too stubborn to admit you're cold." He crossed to her desk and started gathering her supplies, carefully, not touching the painting itself. "This isn't negotiable. You don't get to decide." "Actually, I do, because if you pass out from cold, I'm the one who has to figure out how to get you medical attention in a blizzard. So we're moving you closer to the heat source, now." For a moment, he thought she might actually fight him. Her jaw was set, eyes blazing behind the headlamp. Then her shoulders sagged. "Fine, but if I damage the painting because of an unstable work surface..." "You won't. I'll make sure the nightstand is steady." He moved the nightstand next to his bed, the one closest to the fireplace, and arranged her supplies on it exactly as they'd been on the desk. Sienna watched with her arms crossed, still wearing her headlamp like a strange crown. "There, perfect." Callum stepped back. "Your throne awaits." "This is absurd." "This is survival." He grabbed both comforters from her bed and brought them over. "Get under these. I'll keep the fire going." Sienna hesitated. Then, moving stiffly, she climbed onto his bed and pulled the comforters around herself. She looked like a disgruntled queen holding court from a very warm fortress. "Happy?" she muttered. "Ecstatic." Callum settled into one of the leather chairs, which he dragged even closer to the fire. "Now work. I'll keep watch." "You don't need to keep watch. Someone needs to make sure you don't try to sneak back to the Ice Palace desk." She glared at him, then turned to her painting and picked up her cotton swab. For 20 minutes they didn't speak. Callum fed the fire. Sienna worked. The only sounds were the crackling logs and the whisper of cotton on canvas. Then, "Callum?" "Yeah?" "Thank you." Her voice was small. "For the intervention." "You're welcome. And I'm sorry for being difficult." "You're not difficult. You're focused. There's a difference." Sienna looked at him over her shoulder. In the firelight, her face was softer than he'd seen it. "You're being very patient with me." "Someone has to be." "Most people aren't. Most people probably don't get to see you like this, working on something you care about." She turned back to her painting. "No, they don't." Another silence. Then Callum asked, "Can I take a photo?" "Of what?" "You." Working. Just for me, not for publication. I won't show anyone. Sienna was quiet so long he thought she'd say no. Then, okay, but don't use flash. It'll mess up my lighting. Callum smiled and reached for his camera. Through the lens, she looked like something from another century. A scholar bent over illuminated manuscripts. An artist at work in candlelight. The headlamp beam caught particles of dust in the air, turned them to gold. He took 3 shots, no more. When he lowered the camera, Sienna was watching him. "Can I see?" she asked. He turned the screen toward her, showed her the last image, her profile in firelight, completely absorbed, one hand holding a cotton swab like a paintbrush, the other braced against the nightstand. "I look," she trailed off. "What?" "Not lonely," she glanced at him. "I always look lonely in photos, but in this one, I just look present." "You are present, because you're here." The admission hung between them, quiet and enormous. Outside, the wind picked up, the windows shook. But inside, wrapped in firelight and unexpected company, neither of them felt cold anymore. Sienna woke to the smell of coffee. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. Then the memories assembled. The storm, the hotel, the stranger who'd become less strange, the painting that might change everything. She was still in Callum's bed, buried under both comforters. The fire was going strong. He must have been up early to feed it. Gray dawn light filtered through the windows, turning the snow outside pearlescent. Callum sat in one of the leather chairs, laptop balanced on his knees, a steaming mug in his hand. He looked up when she stirred. "Morning, there's coffee in the guest kitchen. Real coffee, not the instant stuff." Maya left supplies. Sienna sat up, comforters pooling around her waist. Her neck ached from the awkward angle she'd slept at. "What time is it?" "Almost 8. You worked until 2. "Did I?" The hours had blurred together. She remembered revealing more of the painting, a woman's face emerging from centuries of grime, the same enigmatic expression Vermeer was famous for, the same impossible capture of light on skin. "You did. Then you fell asleep mid-brushstroke. I took your headlamp off before you gave yourself a crick in the neck." He stood. "I'll get you coffee. How do you take it?" "Black. But you don't have to." "I'm already up. Stay warm." He left before she could protest. Sienna looked at the nightstand-turned workspace beside the bed. Her supplies were exactly where she'd left them. The painting sat in its protective case, safe. The painting that was almost certainly a Vermeer. Her hands started shaking again just thinking about it. She pressed them flat against the comforter, took 3 deep breaths the way her therapist had taught her years ago. Callum returned with 2 mugs. He handed her one and settled back in his chair. "You okay?" "Define okay." "Not spiraling?" "Then yes, barely." She sipped the coffee, strong and bitter, and exactly what she needed. "Thank you. For last night, for making me move, for all of it. You would have done the same for me." "I'm not sure I would have. I'm not good at taking care of people." "You took care of that painting pretty well. That's something." Sienna looked at the small canvas. "That's different. Paintings don't talk back, don't have needs I can't anticipate. Is that why you chose restoration, instead of creating your own work?" The question was gentle, but it still landed like a punch. Sienna wrapped both hands around her mug. "I studied painting in college, hated it, couldn't handle the vulnerability of putting myself on canvas. Every brushstroke felt like exposure." "But restoration is different?" "Restoration is discovery. I'm not creating something from nothing. I'm revealing what was always there." She met his eyes. "It's safer." Callum nodded slowly. "I get that. It's why I photograph places instead of people. Buildings don't judge you for getting them wrong." "But you photographed me." "You were different." He paused. "You look like a building, actually. Something old and carefully preserved. Beautiful, but closed off." Sienna wasn't sure if she should be offended or not. That's either very poetic or very insulting. It's honest, he smiled. And for what it's worth, I think you're less closed off than you were 2 days ago. We've only known each other 2 days? Feels longer, doesn't it? It did. It felt like she'd known him for months, years even. The way he anticipated when she needed space and when she needed intervention. The way he kept the fire going without being asked. The way he looked at her work with genuine curiosity instead of the polite disinterest most people showed. Callum, she said suddenly. Yeah? Why were you really running away from New Year's? He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. Then, 3 years ago, I was engaged. Sienna's breath caught. What happened? She wanted me to take a staff position. Steady job, steady location, steady life. I kept saying, yes, we'll do that. Just one more assignment. Then one more. Then one more. His jaw tightened. She gave me an ultimatum on New Year's Eve. Choose her or choose the road. You chose the road. I panicked, told her I needed time to think. She said I'd had 2 years to think, and my answer was clear. He set his mug down. She was right. I wasn't ready to stop. Maybe I never will be. Do you regret it? Every single day. He looked at her. But I'd probably make the same choice again. That's the part I can't forgive myself for. Sienna understood that kind of self-knowledge, the awareness that you were fundamentally broken in ways you couldn't fix, only manage. Is that why you avoid New Year's? Because it reminds you of her? It reminds me that I'm the kind of person who chooses freedom over love. Every time. His voice was rough. Not exactly the revelation you want to have at midnight while everyone else is kissing. No, Sienna agreed quietly. It's not. They sat in silence, snow falling outside, fire crackling between them. Then Sienna said, I don't think you're broken. Callum looked up, surprised. I think you're honest about your limitations. Most people aren't. They make promises they can't keep, commit to things they'll resent. She pulled the comforters tighter. At least you knew yourself well enough to be truthful. That's a generous interpretation. It's an accurate one. Something shifted in his expression, softened. Thank you. For what? Not judging me. I'm the last person who should judge anyone for self-preservation. Outside, the wind picked up, the windows rattled, but inside, wrapped in firelight and unexpected understanding, they both felt a little less alone. Sienna worked through the morning while Callum edited photos. The painting was revealing itself in agonizing increments. Each section she cleaned exposed more of the composition. A woman at a window, light streaming across her face, a letter in her hands. Classic Vermeer. The intimacy of a private moment, captured for eternity. But it was the woman's expression that kept drawing Sienna back. Not quite sad, not quite hopeful, something in between. The look of someone waiting for news that might change everything. Sienna understood that look. Felt it in her own chest every time she thought about showing this piece to Whitmore. Every time she imagined the chemical analysis confirming what she already knew in her bones. This was real. This was hers. This was terrifying. You're frowning, Callum said from his chair. I'm concentrating. You frown differently when you concentrate. This is your worried frown. Sienna set down her cotton swab. How can you possibly know the difference? I've been watching you for 2 days. You have at least 5 different frowns. That's disturbing. That's observation. He closed his laptop. What's wrong? Sienna looked at the painting, at the woman who'd been waiting for her letter for 400 years. What if I'm not ready for this? For what? Everything this painting represents, the attention, the scrutiny, the expectations. Her throat tightened. I chose restoration because it's quiet, because I can work alone. If this is real, I'll never work alone again. Callum moved from his chair to sit on the edge of the bed, carefully avoiding her workspace. You think success means giving up privacy? Doesn't it? Whitmore will want press. Museums will want exhibitions. Everyone will want to know how I found it, what I did, why me. She pressed her palms against her eyes. I can barely handle gallery openings. How am I supposed to handle being the person who discovered a lost Vermeer? The same way you handle everything else, one step at a time. That's not helpful. It's true, though. He waited until she lowered her hands and looked at him. You don't have to decide right now how you'll handle success. You just have to finish the work. Everything else comes later. But, Sienna, one step at a time. She wanted to argue, wanted to list all the ways this could go wrong, all the scenarios that kept her awake at night. But Callum's expression was patient and steady, and something in her chest loosened. Okay, she said quietly. One step. That's all any of us can do. She picked up her cotton swab again, dipped it in solution, rolled it across another millimeter of canvas. The woman's hand emerged from the grime. Long fingers, delicate, holding the letter like it might dissolve. Sienna knew that grip, that desperate, careful hold on something precious. We need to talk about tonight. Sienna looked up from her work. It was late afternoon. The light outside had that flat, gray quality that came before dusk. What about tonight? Callum gestured vaguely at the window. It's New Year's Eve. I'm aware. We should acknowledge it, somehow. Sienna's stomach tightened. Why? Because ignoring it feels worse than facing it. Speak for yourself. Ignoring has worked fine for me for 3 years. Has it, though? Callum leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you look like someone who's been running just as hard as I have. Heat flashed through her chest. I'm not running. I'm working. On New Year's Eve. Alone, in a hotel room. That's not working, Sienna. That's hiding. And what are you doing? You were supposed to be on a plane to South America. That's not hiding? I never said I was better at this than you. His voice was calm, infuriatingly reasonable. But maybe that's exactly why we should face it together, since we're both terrible at it. Sienna set down her cotton swab with more force than necessary. What do you want, Callum? Champagne and party hats? A countdown? I want to not spend midnight pretending we're both fine, when we're clearly not. I am fine. You're working yourself to exhaustion on a painting that terrifies you. You haven't left this room in 2 days. You barely eat unless I force you. He stood, paced to the window. That's not fine. That's survival mode. And what's your excuse? You sit here editing photos instead of taking new ones. You haven't touched your camera except to photograph me. What are you running from? The words came out harsher than she intended. Callum's shoulders tensed. I'm not running, he said quietly. I'm stopping. For the first time in 3 years, I'm actually staying still long enough to feel something. Sienna's anger deflated. Callum, forget it. He grabbed his jacket from the chair. I'm going to check if Maya has any food left in the kitchen. I'll be back in 20 minutes. You don't have to, but he was already gone. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Sienna alone with her painting and the guilty knot in her chest. She stared at the canvas, at the woman with her letter, her patient waiting, her quiet hope. What was she waiting for? Good news or bad? Love or loss? Sienna reached for her journal and wrote, I'm afraid if I stop working, I'll have to admit I'm lonely. The words stared back at her, true and terrible. She closed the journal. The snow had stopped. Sienna noticed it first as a change in sound. The wind had quieted, leaving behind an almost supernatural silence. She went to the window and looked out at the world remade. Everything was white and still. Drifts sculpted into organic shapes, street lamps buried to their necks. The town square transformed into something from a fairy tale. Stars were visible for the first time since she'd arrived, scattered across a clear black sky. Beautiful, desolate, lonely. Behind her, the door opened. Callum came in carrying a tray loaded with actual food. Bread, cheese, apples, what looked like soup in a thermos. Maya outdid herself, he said, setting the tray on the coffee table. She says the power might be back by morning. Roads should be clear by tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon. Back to Boston. Back to her empty studio and the gallery opening she'd been avoiding and the reality of whatever this painting was about to become. Back to being alone. The storm stopped, Sienna said. I saw. Callum came to stand beside her at the window. It's beautiful. It's isolating. That too. They stood there, shoulders almost touching, watching the stars appear one by one. I'm sorry, Sienna said quietly, for what I said earlier about you running. You weren't wrong. I was cruel. You were honest, he glanced at her. I've been avoiding my camera because every time I look through the viewfinder, I see the same thing. Empty spaces. Beautiful, yes, but empty. And I'm tired of photographing my own loneliness. Sienna's chest ached. I don't know how to not be lonely. Me neither. Everyone else makes it look easy. Connections, relationships, being part of things. They're probably faking it. Despite everything, Sienna smiled. You think? I know. Callum turned to face her fully. I've photographed enough parties and weddings and family gatherings to see the cracks. Most people are just better at pretending. That's depressing. Or it's freeing. Means we're not uniquely broken. Just honest about it. Sienna looked up at him. In the starlight coming through the window, his face was all angles and shadows. Why are you being so nice to me? Because you're the first person in 3 years who hasn't tried to fix me. I couldn't fix you if I tried. I can barely fix myself. Exactly. His smile was small, sad. We're a mess, Sienna, but at least we're honest about it. She wanted to kiss him. The urge came sudden and fierce, catching her completely off guard. Not because he was handsome, though he was, but because he saw her. Really saw her. The broken parts, the scared parts, the parts she kept hidden from everyone else. And he hadn't run. Callum, she whispered. Yeah? About tonight, about New Year's. She took a breath. You're right. Ignoring it won't make it hurt less. So what do you want to do? I don't know, but I don't want to spend midnight alone. His expression softened. Neither do I. They made dinner together. Sienna had never been good at cooking. Her idea of a meal was usually crackers and whatever cheese didn't require refrigeration. But Callum moved through the guest kitchen with the ease of someone used to making do in strange places. Dice these, he said, handing her an apple and a knife. For what? You'll see. They worked in companionable silence. Callum heated the soup Maya had left, something with potatoes and leeks that smelled like comfort. Sienna cut the apple into precise cubes, then the cheese, then the bread. You cut everything the same size, Callum observed. It's more efficient. It's very you. Is that an insult? It's an observation. He tasted the soup, added salt. You bring the same precision to everything. Your work, your clothes, the way you arrange hotel rooms. You bring chaos to everything, Sienna countered. Your cameras all over the place, your clothes on every chair, the way you leave cabinet doors open in kitchens. Callum looked at the cabinet behind him. It was indeed open. He closed it with an exaggerated motion. Better? Marginally. They ate at the small table in the guest kitchen, which was really just a converted storage room with a hot plate and a mini fridge. The overhead light buzzed softly. Outside the tiny window, stars wheeled across the clear sky. This is nice, Sienna said, surprising herself. Soup in a storage room? Company. She met his eyes. I don't usually like company. I don't usually offer it. So what changed? Callum was quiet for a moment, soup spoon suspended halfway to his mouth. You did. Or maybe I did. Or maybe we both just got tired of running. Sienna thought about the woman in her painting, waiting by the window, holding her letter, hoping for something to change. What if we're not good at this? She asked. at whatever this is. We're probably not, but we could try anyway. Why? Because I'm tired of photographing empty rooms. And you're tired of restoring other people's love stories. He set down his spoon. Maybe it's time we tried living our own. Sienna's heart hammered against her ribs. Callum, I'm not asking for promises. I'm just asking for tonight. His voice was steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. Spend New Year's with me. Not hiding, not working, just being. Every instinct told her to say no, to retreat to her painting and her carefully constructed solitude, to protect herself from the inevitable disappointment of trying and failing to connect. But she thought about 3 years of lonely New Year's Eves, 3 years of watching midnight tick by while she pretended it didn't matter. 3 years of telling herself that isolation was safety. Okay, she whispered. Yes. Callum's smile was like sunrise. Yeah? Don't make me repeat it. He reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused from camera gear. Thank you. For what? Being brave enough to say yes. Sienna looked at their joined hands, felt the steady pressure of his fingers around hers. I'm terrified. Me too. This is probably a mistake. Probably. We barely know each other. I know you talk to paintings. You know I count protein bars. That's a start. He squeezed her hand gently. Besides, we have, he checked his watch, 4 hours until midnight. Plenty of time to either confirm this is a terrible idea or discover it's the best one we've had in years. Despite her fear, Sienna laughed. Those are the options? Those are always the options with things worth doing. They returned to the suite at 8. The fire had burned down to embers. Callum rebuilt it while Sienna changed into clean clothes. The nicest sweater she'd packed, which wasn't saying much, and jeans that didn't have paint stains. When she emerged from the bathroom, Callum had transformed the sitting area. He'd moved the chairs closer to the fire, draped blankets over the backs for extra warmth, set out the remaining food from Maya's care package like a feast. Candles, probably meant for power outages, flickered on the coffee table. You've been busy, Sienna said. I have hidden depths. He'd changed too. Clean shirt, dark jeans. His hair was still damp from washing. Wine? There's wine? Maya left a bottle, said something about New Year's deserving small luxuries. He poured 2 glasses, hotel tumblers, not wine glasses, but it didn't matter. To small luxuries. Sienna clinked her glass against his. To small luxuries. The wine was cheap and sweet, but it warmed her from the inside out. She settled into one of the chairs, tucking her feet under her. Callum took the other, the fire crackling between them. So, he said, 4 hours. What do you want to know about me? Is this 20 questions? If you want it to be. Sienna considered. Then, why photography? Why not painting or writing or something that lets you stay in one place? Because a camera is a permission slip. It lets you look at things, really look, without being weird about it. He swirled his wine. And because every place I photograph, I get to leave. The camera keeps the memory, so I don't have to. That's sad. That's honest. Both can be true. Callum smiled. Your turn. Why art restoration? Why not create your own work? I told you already, I hated the vulnerability. But there's more to it than that. Sienna was quiet, staring into the fire. My mother was a painter, is a painter. She's actually quite good, sells pieces in galleries, teaches workshops, has that effortless confidence people admire. She took a drink. I used to watch her work when I was little, the way she'd attack a canvas, no fear, just pure expression. And you wanted to be like her? I wanted to be anything but her. She's chaos, emotion everywhere. Paintings half finished because she lost interest. Deadlines missed because inspiration didn't strike. Sienna's hands tightened on her glass. I needed order, control, so I chose restoration. taking broken things and making them whole again. You chose to fix things because you couldn't fix her. The words landed like a punch. Sienna looked at him, startled. That's probably true. It's okay, we all have our reasons. Callum leaned forward. For what it's worth, I think choosing restoration is brave. You're not hiding from creation, you're honoring it, showing that other people's art matters enough to preserve. Something in Sienna's chest loosened. I never thought of it that way. Maybe you should. They fell into easier conversation then, trading stories, favorite books. Sienna loved historical fiction, Callum devoured travel memoirs. Worst meals. Sienna once ate gas station sushi out of desperation. Callum had food poisoning in Mumbai that he still hadn't forgiven himself for. Places they dreamed of visiting. Sienna wanted to see the Prado in Madrid. Callum wanted to photograph the temples of Angkor Wat at dawn. The wine bottle emptied. The fire burned steady. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, indifferent and eternal. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Sienna realized she was happy. Not performing happiness, not faking it, actually genuinely happy in a way she hadn't been in years. Callum, she said softly. Thank you for being stuck here with me. He looked at her across the firelight. Thank you for letting me stay. 9:30. Sienna excused herself to check on the painting, a compulsion she couldn't quite shake. Callum stayed by the fire, giving her space. The canvas looked back at her with the woman's enigmatic expression, more revealed now than hidden, the letter clear in her hands. The window behind her, showing a slice of sky. Sienna touched the edge of the frame. You waited 400 years for someone to find you. I can wait one night to finish. The woman didn't answer, but Sienna felt something shift anyway. Permission, maybe. Or just the quiet understanding that some things were more important than deadlines. She took a photo with her phone, documentation for later. Then she carefully packed the painting back in its protective case and set it aside. When she returned to the fire, Callum looked up. Everything okay? Yeah, I just needed to know it was safe. And? It's safe. She settled back into her chair. I'm done working for tonight. His eyebrows rose. Really? Really. The painting will still be there tomorrow, but this, she gestured between them, this feels more urgent. Callum's expression softened. Come here. What? Come here. Sitting in separate chairs is ridiculous at this point. Sienna's pulse jumped. But she stood, crossed the small space between their chairs, and let Callum pull her down to sit beside him. The chair was meant for one person, so she ended up half in his lap, her shoulder tucked against his chest. Better? He asked. Warmer, at least. His arm came around her waist, steadying her. You're shaking. I'm nervous. Of what? This, you. The fact that in 2.5 hours, it'll be a new year, and I have no idea what happens next. Callum's hand moved in slow circles on her side. Nothing has to happen next. We can just be here. Now. I'm not good at now. I'm always thinking 3 steps ahead. Then don't think, just feel. Sienna closed her eyes, let herself focus on the physical. The warmth of his body against hers, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the rough texture of his shirt under her cheek, the fire crackling nearby, the smell of wood smoke and wine, and something distinctly him. For the first time in longer than she could remember, her mind went quiet. This is nice, she whispered. Yeah, it is. They sat like that for a long time, not talking, just being, together. 10:15. I need to tell you something. Callum's voice broke the comfortable silence. Sienna lifted her head from his chest. What? That phone call, the one about the assignment in South America. He wouldn't meet her eyes. It wasn't unexpected. I scheduled it, told them to call on New Year's Day because I knew I'd need an escape route. Sienna's stomach dropped. An escape route from what? From this, from feeling something. He finally looked at her. I've been running so long that I don't know how to stop. So I build in exits, ways to leave before things get real. And the call is still happening? Tomorrow? I don't know, maybe. The storm might have changed their timeline. His jaw tightened. But the point is, I set it up, just in case I needed to run. Anger flashed through Sienna's chest, hot and sudden. She pulled away from him, stood up. So tonight is what? A trial run? See if you can stand intimacy for a few hours before you bolt? No, because I'm doing the same calculation, Callum. Wondering if this is worth the inevitable hurt. Wondering if I should protect myself before you inevitably leave. Her voice cracked. But I decided to be brave anyway, and you're telling me you already had an exit planned? I'm telling you because I don't want to use it. He stood too, reached for her. I'm telling you because you deserve to know I'm terrified, and I've been sabotaging myself for years, and I don't know if I can change. Then why tell me at all? Why not just take the call tomorrow and leave without the emotional bloodshed? Because I don't want to leave. The words came out fierce. Because for the first time in 3 years, I want to stay, and that scares me more than anything. Sienna stared at him, at the vulnerability in his eyes, the way his hands shook slightly at his side. You're asking me to trust that you won't run. I'm asking you to take a chance on someone who's proven he's not worth the risk. His voice dropped, which is a terrible ask, I know, but I'm asking anyway. Why? Because I think you're worth stopping for, and I want to find out if I'm brave enough to do it. Sienna's anger wavered. Underneath it was fear, the same fear she saw in Callum's face. The terror of wanting something you might not be capable of keeping. I can't promise I won't run too, she said quietly. I've been isolating myself for so long that I don't know how to let someone in. So we're both risks, terrible ones. But we could try anyway. He took a careful step toward her. We could fail spectacularly, or we could surprise ourselves. Those are the only options? With things worth doing, yeah. Sienna thought about the woman in the painting. 400 years of waiting. 400 years of frozen hope. She didn't want to wait anymore. Okay, she breathed. Let's surprise ourselves. 11 o'clock. They'd fallen back into the chair together, this time with Sienna fully curled into Callum's lap. Her head rested on his shoulder. His arms wrapped around her waist. The fire painted them in gold and shadow. Tell me about your ex, Sienna said quietly. She felt Callum tense. Why? Because I need to know what I'm competing with. You're not competing with anyone. Her ghost, then. He was quiet for a long moment, then. Her name was Rebecca. We met at a gallery opening. Ironic, I know. She was an event planner. Organized, efficient, everything I wasn't. I think that's what drew me to her. She made chaos feel manageable. What did you love about her? She saw potential in me I didn't see in myself. Thought I could be something more than a drifter with a camera. His voice roughened. She was probably right. But you didn't want to change. I wanted to want to change. But every time I tried to picture settling down, I felt like I was suffocating. Like all the air was getting sucked out of the room. Sienna understood that feeling. So you left. So I left. And she moved on, found someone who could give her what she needed. Last I heard, she's married, pregnant, happy. He tightened his hold on Sienna. I don't regret that she's happy. I regret that I couldn't be the one to make her happy. Do you still love her? No, but I still carry the guilt. Sienna traced patterns on his chest. What if you didn't have to choose between freedom and connection? I don't know if that's possible. What if it was? What if you could have both? Callum pulled back enough to look at her. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't need you to be different than you are. I don't need stability or promises or a plan. Her heart hammered. I just need honesty and presence. And the knowledge that when you leave, because you will leave eventually, It won't be because you are running from me. Sienna, I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking you to be honest about what you can give. And I'll do the same. She met his eyes. I can't give you easy intimacy or social grace, or the ability to attend parties without panic. But I can give you my time, my attention, my trust as much as I'm capable of. That's more than enough. Is it? God, yes. He cupped her face in his hands. You're more than I deserve. That's not how this works. We're not measuring worth. We're just trying. Trying, he repeated. I can do trying, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Outside, distant church bells began to ring. 11:30, 30 minutes until midnight, 30 minutes until everything changed, or stayed the same, or shattered completely. Sienna realized she didn't care which. She just wanted to be here, now, with him. 11:45. We should do the countdown, Callum said. Sienna looked at her phone. There's no signal. We can't stream anything. So we'll make our own countdown. He shifted, pulling her closer. What do you want the next year to bring? That's a loaded question. Answer anyway. Sienna thought. I want to finish this restoration, see it through to the end, whatever that means. And I want to try at connection, at being less afraid. That's a good goal. What about you? I want to stop running, or at least run toward things instead of away from them. He pressed his lips to her hair. And I want to see you again. After the storm, after we go back to real life, I want to choose to stay. That's scary, terrifying. But you'll try? I'll try. 11:50. They watched the fire, listened to the old buildings settle around them. Outside, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. Sienna? Yeah? I'm going to kiss you at midnight, if that's okay. Her breath caught. That's okay. Even though we're a mess? Especially because we're a mess. 11:55. Callum's hand found hers, laced their fingers together. I'm glad I was stuck here with you. I'm glad you fought me for that room. Best decision I never meant to make. 11:58. The fire crackled. A log shifted, sending sparks up the chimney. The shadows danced across the walls, making the room feel like a place out of time. A pocket universe where only they existed. Callum? I'm scared. Me too. But I don't want to run. Neither do I. 11:59. They counted down the last minute in silence, watching each other, present, together. 30 seconds. 20. 10. And then midnight arrived, not with champagne or confetti or manufactured joy, but with the quiet certainty that something had shifted. Something fundamental and fragile and entirely their own. Callum kissed her, soft at first, tentative, then deeper as Sienna pressed closer, her hands finding his hair, his arms tightening around her waist. The kiss tasted like wine and hope, and the terrifying possibility of tomorrow. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Callum rested his forehead against hers. Happy New Year, he whispered. Happy New Year. Outside, distant fireworks began, faint pops of color against the dark sky. But Sienna barely noticed. She was too busy kissing him again, claiming this moment, this night, this impossible chance at something real. They moved to the bed sometime after 1, not for sleep, not yet, just to be more comfortable as they talked and kissed and talked some more. The conversation punctuated by long silences where words weren't necessary. Sienna learned that Callum had a scar on his shoulder from falling off a temple wall in Thailand, that he spoke passable Spanish and terrible French, that he'd been afraid of the dark as a child and still sometimes left lights on when he traveled. Callum learned that Sienna had perfect pitch but refused to sing, that she'd broken her wrist in college, and the painting she'd been working on when it happened was still unfinished in her closet, that she collected vintage books about art restoration, Some of them so old the pages crumbled when she turned them. "Show me," Callum said, nodding toward the painting case. "What?" "The Vermeer. I want to see what you've uncovered." Sienna hesitated. Then she got up, retrieved the case, brought it back to the bed. Carefully, she removed the small canvas and positioned it in the lamplight. Callum went very still. The woman stared out from the painting with that enigmatic expression, her letter clutched in delicate hands, the window behind her showing infinite sky, light painted across her face like a blessing. "It's beautiful," Callum breathed. "It's not finished. There's still so much work." "It's beautiful," he repeated. "You did this. You brought her back." Sienna looked at the painting with new eyes. "I guess I did. What do you think the letter says?" "We'll never know. Vermeer never painted the actual words, just the emotion of receiving them." "What emotion do you see?" Sienna studied the woman's face. "Hope and fear, the knowledge that whatever's in that letter will change everything. Like opening a door you can't close again." "Exactly." Callum reached out, stopped just short of touching the canvas. "That's how I feel right now, like we've opened something that can't be closed." "Are you sorry?" "No," he looked at her. "Are you?" "Not yet." "That's honest. That's all I can give you." "It's enough." They packed the painting away, lay back down on the bed, still fully clothed, facing each other in the lamplight. "What happens tomorrow?" Sienna asked. "I don't know. The roads will probably be clear. We'll have to leave. Back to Boston. Back to real life." "Yeah." "Will you take the call? The assignment?" Callum was quiet. "I don't know. Part of me wants to say no, walk away, choose this instead. But I don't know if I'm capable of that yet, of choosing someone over freedom." His voice was raw. "And I don't want to promise something I can't deliver." Sienna's chest ached, but she understood. "Then don't promise, just try. That's all I'm asking." "What if trying isn't enough?" "Then at least we'll know we tried." Callum pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I don't want to lose you." "You don't have me to lose. Not yet." "I want to, though. I want to have you. Want to be someone you could count on." "Then be that person, starting now." Morning came too soon. Sienna woke to gray light and the sound of plows working the streets below. Callum was still asleep beside her, one arm draped across her waist, his breathing deep and even. She watched him for a long moment, memorizing the curve of his jaw, the way his hair fell across his forehead. The small scar on his shirt had shifted. This could be the last time. Tomorrow, today, they would pack up and leave, return to separate cities, separate lives. Callum would get his phone call, make his decision. She would return to her studio and face Whitmore and the reality of the painting that would change everything. And they would both have to decide if one snowbound New Year's Eve was enough to build something real on. Sienna's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Text from Maya. "Power's back. Roads cleared by noon. Checkout is flexible. Take your time." Take your time, as if they had time to take. Callum stirred, opened his eyes, smiled when he saw her watching. "Morning." "Morning. What time is it?" "Almost 9. We should get up." "Probably." Neither of them moved. "Sienna?" "Yeah?" "I don't regret this. Last night. Any of it." "Good. Neither do I." "Even if it ends today?" The question hurt, but Sienna forced herself to answer honestly. "Even if it ends today, at least I'll know I tried to connect. That's more than I've done in years." "I'm going to take the call," Callum said quietly, "when it comes. Not because I want to run, but because I need to know if I can walk away from it. And if you can't, then I'll know I'm not ready, and that wouldn't be fair to you." Sienna wanted to argue, wanted to say that fair wasn't the point, that trying mattered more than succeeding. But she understood what he meant. Some decisions had to be made alone. "Okay," she whispered. "Take the call." Will you wait to hear what I decide? How long? I don't know, a day? A week? I'll wait a week. After that, she trailed off. After that, you move on. I get it. It's not about moving on, it's about protecting myself. I know. He kissed her forehead. I'm sorry I can't just choose you right now. I'm sorry I need you to choose at all. They lay there in the growing light, holding each other, both knowing this might be the last time. The call came at 11. Sienna was packing her supplies when Callum's phone rang. He looked at the screen, then at her. It's them. Her stomach dropped. Do you want privacy? No. Stay. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap, while Callum answered. This is Callum. Yes, I'm still interested. Tomorrow? That's fast. Rio de Janeiro for 6 months? Yes, I understand it's a significant opportunity. Sienna watched his face, saw the moment he realized what this meant. 6 months. Not a week assignment, not a quick escape, a real commitment to leaving. Can I call you back in an hour? Callum said. I need to. Yes, thank you. He hung up, stared at the phone in his hand. 6 months, Sienna said quietly. Yeah. In Brazil. Yeah. That's a big assignment. Career-defining, actually. The kind photographers dream about. He set the phone down. I'd be documenting the Amazon, indigenous communities, environmental changes, important work. You should take it. Callum looked at her sharply. What? You should take it. It's everything you wanted. Freedom, purpose, meaning. What about you? I'll be fine. I have the painting, the restoration, my own career to manage. Her voice was steady even though her heart was breaking. We had one night, Callum. That doesn't obligate you to give up 6 months in the Amazon. But I want to choose you. I want to be brave enough. Bravery isn't choosing me over something you love. Bravery is being honest about what you need. She stood, crossed to where he sat. I don't want you to resent me. And you would, eventually, if you gave up this opportunity for a relationship that might not even work. You're giving me permission to leave. I'm giving you permission to be yourself. That's what love is. The word hung between them. Love. Spoken aloud for the first time. Callum's eyes filled. I don't deserve you. Stop measuring worth. Just make the choice that's right for you. What if the right choice is staying? Then stay. But don't stay out of guilt or obligation or fear of hurting me. Stay because you genuinely want this more than you want that assignment. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't know if I do. Sienna's chest cracked open, but she nodded. Then go. Sienna, it's okay, really. I knew what this was, what we are. Two people who don't know how to stay. At least we were honest about it. I could come back. After the 6 months, we could try again. Maybe. Or maybe we'll both have moved on by then. Changed. Become different people. She cupped his face in her hands. Don't make promises you can't keep. Just remember this. Remember that for one night, we weren't alone. Callum kissed her then, desperate and heartbroken and full of all the things they couldn't say. When they broke apart, both were crying. I'm sorry, he whispered. Don't be. This was still worth it. An hour later, Sienna loaded her car. The painting sat carefully wrapped in the passenger seat. Her supplies were packed, her hotel bill paid, her goodbyes said to Maya. Callum walked her to the parking lot. The sun was out for the first time in days, turning the snow into fields of diamonds. The town looked like a postcard, perfect and untouchable. Safe drive, he said. You too, when you leave. Sienna. Don't, she smiled through tears. Let's not make this harder than it is. She got in her car, started the engine, looked at him one last time through the window. He raised a hand. She did the same. Then she drove away, watching him shrink in the rearview mirror until he disappeared entirely. 3 weeks later, Sienna stood in her studio and stared at the Vermeer. Authenticated, confirmed, real. The chemical analysis had come back 2 days after she'd returned from Vermont. The pigments matched 17th century Dutch production methods. The canvas was period appropriate. The signature, barely visible under centuries of varnish, was genuine. She'd found a lost Vermeer. Whitmore had been ecstatic, offered her not just the commission, but a permanent position as his lead restorer. More money than she'd ever imagined, access to collections around the world, everything she'd worked toward for 10 years. She'd said yes because saying no would have been insane. But standing here now, alone in her studio with the painting that should have made her happy, all she felt was empty. The woman in the painting still held her letter, still wore that expression of hope and fear, still waited by her window for something that might never come. Sienna understood that waiting now, intimately. It had been 3 weeks, no call, no text, no word from Callum at all. He'd made his choice, the Amazon. 6 months of freedom and purpose and everything he'd always wanted. She didn't blame him. She'd practically pushed him toward it. But God, it hurt. Her phone buzzed. Text from her mother. "Gallery opening tonight. You're still coming, right? I know you hate these things, but it would mean the world." Sienna stared at the message. Every instinct said to decline, to stay here in her safe studio with her safe painting and her safe solitude. But Callum's voice echoed in her head. "Maybe it's time we tried living our own love stories." She typed back, "I'll be there, 7 p.m.? Her mother's response was immediate. "Yes. Thank you, sweetheart. I promise it won't be too overwhelming." Sienna set down her phone and looked at the Vermeer one more time. "I'm trying," she told the painted woman. "I don't know if it'll work, but I'm trying." The woman didn't answer, but somehow Sienna thought she understood. The gallery was exactly as awful as Sienna remembered. Too many people, too much noise, too many eyes tracking her as she entered, recognizing her as Margaret Hayes's daughter, the one who never came to openings, the recluse, the odd one. But she'd promised, so she stayed. Her mother found her within minutes, swept her into a hug that smelled of turpentine and jasmine perfume. "You came! I can't believe you actually came." I said I would. "You say that every year and then cancel at the last minute." Her mother pulled back, studying her face. "What changed?" Sienna thought about a hotel room and a stranger who'd become less strange. About choosing bravery over safety. About trying. "I'm tired of running," she said simply. Her mother's expression softened. "Oh, sweetheart, come meet some people. I promise they're not as scary as you think." They were exactly as scary as Sienna thought. But she tried anyway. Made small talk with collectors and critics. Discussed composition and light with other artists. Topic, academic, a glass of wine she didn't drink, just to have something to do with her hands. And somewhere around 8:30, she realized she was surviving. Not enjoying it exactly. The noise still grated. The crowds still made her skin crawl. But she was managing, breathing through it, proving to herself that she could. "Sienna?" She turned. One of her mother's artist friends, a sculptor named David who'd always been kind to her, stood holding a catalog. "I heard about your Vermeer discovery. Congratulations. That's incredible work." "Thank you." "Whitmore must be thrilled. He's been chasing that kind of find for years." "He is." David hesitated. "Can I ask you something? As someone who also works with old things trying to bring them back to life, how do you handle the loneliness of it, the isolation?" The question caught her off guard. "What do you mean?" "Restoration work. It's so solitary. You and the piece and nobody else. How do you not lose yourself in it?" Sienna thought about the past 3 weeks. The hours spent alone with the Vermeer, finishing the work, perfecting every detail. The way she'd thrown herself into it to avoid thinking about Callum. "I don't know if I handle it well," she admitted. I think I've been using it as an excuse to avoid people. Why? Because people are unpredictable. They leave. They disappoint you. They expect things you can't give. She swirled the wine in her glass. Art is safer. It doesn't ask for more than you can offer. David nodded slowly. But it also doesn't give you more than what's already there. People can surprise you, aren't just is. Is that a bad thing? Not bad, just limiting. He smiled gently. You're incredibly talented, Sienna. But talent means nothing if you're too afraid to share it with anyone who matters. He moved on to greet someone else, leaving Sienna standing alone with her untouched wine and the uncomfortable truth of his words. Who mattered to her? Her mother, a handful of colleagues, and a photographer she'd known for 3 days, who'd somehow become the most important person in her world. A photographer who'd chosen the Amazon over her. Sienna set down her wine glass and headed for the exit. The email arrived at midnight. Sienna was back in her apartment, curled on the couch with a book she wasn't reading, when her laptop chimed. Sender, Callum Reed. Subject, I'm an idiot. Her heart stopped, then started again, too fast. She stared at the subject line for a full minute before opening it. Sienna, I'm writing this from a tent in the Amazon rainforest. It's 3 a.m. I can't sleep. Haven't been able to sleep properly since I left Vermont. The assignment is everything I thought it would be. The work is important. The images are stunning. I'm documenting things that matter, contributing to something bigger than myself. But every photograph I take feels empty. I thought I needed freedom. Turns out what I needed was a reason to come home. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for another chance. I just need you to know that leaving was the biggest mistake I've ever made. The Amazon is beautiful, but it's not you. I have 4 months left on this contract, 4 months of proving to myself that I can finish what I started, that I can be someone who doesn't run from commitments. When I'm done, I'm coming back. To Boston, to you, if you'll have me. I know that's asking a lot. I know I don't deserve your trust, but I'm asking anyway. Because you were right. Bravery isn't choosing freedom over love. Bravery is choosing love even when it terrifies you. I'm choosing you, Sienna, even if it takes me 4 more months to prove it. Yours, if you'll have me, Callum. Sienna read the email 3 times, then a 4th. Her hands shook, her vision blurred with tears. He was coming back. Not tomorrow, not next week, but in 4 months. 4 months of waiting. 4 months of not knowing if what they'd had could survive the distance. 4 months of choosing to trust instead of protect herself. She hit reply. Callum, you're not an idiot. You're human. And humans are allowed to be scared. I've been scared too. Terrified, actually. That what we had was just a snowbound fantasy. That it couldn't survive real life. But I've been trying. Going to gallery openings. Accepting Whitmore's position. Choosing connection over isolation, even when it hurts. 4 months is a long time, but I'll wait. Not because I'm frozen like the woman in the painting, but because I'm choosing to believe in something we barely started. Finish your work. Document the Amazon. Contribute to something that matters. Then come home. I'll be here. Yours, Sienna. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she closed her laptop and cried, not from sadness, but from the terrifying, exhilarating possibility that this might actually work. The emails became a lifeline. At first they were careful, polite updates about work. Callum described the rainforest, the people he met, the photographs he was capturing. Sienna wrote about the Vermeer's unveiling, Whitmore's reactions, the media attention she was learning to navigate. Then slowly they deepened. Callum admitted he'd been using assignments as armor against intimacy, that he'd convinced himself freedom mattered more than connection, because connection required vulnerability he didn't think he could handle. Sienna confessed she'd been using restoration work the same way, that she'd hidden behind other people's art, because creating her own felt like standing naked in front of a firing squad. They wrote about their families, their fears, the things that kept them awake at 3 a.m. And somewhere in the exchange of thousands of words across thousands of miles, they built something stronger than what they'd had in Vermont. They built trust. Week 8, Callum. I saw a bird today that reminded me of you. A heron, completely still in the water, patient, waiting, then sudden movement, striking with absolute precision. That's how you work. Patient observation, then decisive action. Sienna. That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me, comparing me to a predatory bird. Callum. Hey, herons are elegant. Sienna. They also eat fish whole. Callum. The metaphor broke down. I'm out of practice with romance. Sienna. Then practice. You have 4 months. Week 12. Sienna. The Vermeer exhibition opened today. Over 2,000 people came. They stood in front of the painting and talked about the woman's expression, the light, the mystery of the letter. No one mentioned me except as the restorer who found it. It should bother me. It doesn't. I prefer being invisible. Callum. You're not invisible to me. Sienna. I know. That terrifies me. Callum. Good. Being terrified means you're doing something that matters. Week 16. Callum. 2 weeks left. I keep thinking about that hotel room, the fire, the way you looked at midnight when I kissed you. Do you think we can recreate that? Or was it just the storm, the isolation, the unreality of it all? Sienna. I think we can build something better, something that doesn't need a blizzard to justify it. Callum. What if I'm still afraid? Sienna. Then we'll be afraid together. The call came with 1 week left. Sienna was in her studio, working on a new project, a Renaissance piece that didn't terrify her the way the Vermeer had, when her phone rang. Callum. Video call. She answered. His face filled the screen, tanned, thinner, exhausted, but smiling. Hi, he said. Hi. I needed to see you. Emails aren't enough anymore. You look tired. I am, but I'm also done. The assignment wraps in 5 days. I'll be back in Boston by next weekend. Sienna's heart stuttered. Next weekend, that's soon, I know. Too soon? No, yes, I don't know. She set down her brush. Callum, I'm terrified. Of what? That this won't work. That what we had in Vermont was just proximity and timing. That real life will kill it. His expression sobered. I've been thinking about that too. And I think you're right to be scared. We barely know each other. We've been apart longer than we were together. This could fail spectacularly. That's not reassuring, but it could also work. And I'd rather try and fail than spend the rest of my life wondering what if. He leaned closer to the camera. I'm done running, Sienna. From this, from you, from the possibility of something real. What if I'm not done running? Then I'll wait, the way you waited for me. Sienna's eyes filled. I don't know how to do this, how to let someone in. Neither do I, but we can figure it out together. What if we hurt each other? We probably will, but we'll also make each other better, braver, more willing to try. His voice softened. You've already changed me, Sienna. You made me want to stop. That's not nothing. You changed me too. You made me want to start. They sat in silence for a moment, just looking at each other across the distance. Then Callum said, I'm going to kiss you when I see you. Fair warning. Despite everything, Sienna smiled. That's acceptable. Just acceptable? Anticipated. Better, he grinned. 5 days, Sienna. Then I'm yours, if you'll have me. I'll have you, even though we're a mess, especially because we're a mess. 5 days felt like 5 years. Sienna cleaned her apartment, then cleaned it again, bought groceries she didn't eat, changed her outfit 4 times before settling on jeans and a sweater that didn't look like she was trying too hard. She was trying so hard. The plan was simple. Callum would land at Logan at 6 p.m., take a cab to his apartment to drop off his gear, meet her at a coffee shop near her studio at 8 p.m. Neutral territory, public space, no pressure. Except the pressure was enormous. What if the emails had been a fantasy? What if seeing each other in person shattered the illusion? What if 4 months apart had changed them too much? Sienna stood in front of her bathroom mirror at 7:30 p.m. and gave herself a pep talk. You survived a gallery opening. You accepted a high-profile position. You've been choosing bravery for 4 months. This is just one more choice. Her reflection didn't look convinced. She grabbed her coat and left before she could talk herself out of it. The coffee shop was warm and crowded, Friday night rush. Sienna found a table near the window where she could watch the door. Ordered tea she didn't drink. Checked her phone every 30 seconds. 7:55 p.m. Landed. On my way. 8:02 p.m. Traffic is terrible. Might be 10 minutes late. 8:15 p.m. Almost there. Sienna's hands shook. She pressed them flat against the table. The door opened. And there he was. Callum stood in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, hair longer than she remembered, eyes scanning the room until they found her. Their gazes locked. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Callum crossed the coffee shop in 6 strides, pulled Sienna to her feet, and kissed her like he was drowning and she was air. The coffee shop disappeared. The noise faded. There was only this, his mouth on hers, his hands framing her face, the solid reality of him after months of words on screens. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Callum pressed his forehead to hers. "Hi," he whispered. "Hi. Sorry I'm late." "You're here, that's what matters." He pulled back enough to look at her. "Really look. You're more beautiful than I remembered. You're thinner than I expected. Rainforest diet, not recommended." He smiled. "Can we get out of here? Go somewhere we can actually talk? My studio is 2 blocks away." "Lead the way." They barely made it through the studio door before they were kissing again. Desperate, hungry kisses that tasted like relief and fear and 4 months of wanting. Sienna's back hit the wall. Callum's hands tangled in her hair. They broke apart only long enough to shed coats and shoes before colliding again. "I missed you," Callum breathed against her mouth. "God, I missed you." "Show me." They made it to the couch. Barely. Clothes scattered across the floor. Skin against skin. The frantic need to prove this was real. They were real. 4 months hadn't erased what they'd built. After, they lay tangled together under a blanket Sienna kept for late work nights, breathing hard, hearts still racing. "That was," Callum trailed off. "Yeah. Better than Vermont?" "Different, but yes." He turned to look at her. "I meant what I said. In the emails. I'm choosing this. You. Us. What about your next assignment?" "I turned it down." Sienna sat up. "What?" "There was an offer. 6 months in Mongolia. Everything I would normally jump at." He met her eyes. "I said no." "Callum." "I said no because I'm tired of running. Because I want to see what happens when I actually stay somewhere. With someone." He touched her face. "I want to stay with you." Tears burned Sienna's eyes. "You can't just give up your career for me." "I'm not giving it up. I'm redirecting it. There are stories here, Sienna, in Boston. Stories that don't require me to disappear for months at a time." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "I want to build something. Not just document other people's lives. Build my own." "What if you regret it?" "What if I don't?" He pulled her close. "I spent 4 months in one of the most beautiful places on earth, and all I could think about was you. That's not wanderlust. That's love." The word hung between them. Love. Said plainly, in her studio, with no storm to blame it on. Say it again, Sienna whispered. I love you. I love you too. They kissed again, slower this time, a promise instead of proof. They spent the next month learning each other. Callum found an apartment 3 blocks from Sienna's studio, close enough to feel connected, far enough to maintain independence. He took local assignments, photographing Boston's changing neighborhoods, documenting small businesses, building a portfolio that didn't require international flights. Sienna started painting again, not for clients, for herself. Small canvases hidden in the corner of her studio where no one would see them. But Callum saw them, encouraged them, told her they were beautiful even when she insisted they were terrible. They had their first fight over dishes, their second over Callum's habit of leaving camera gear in walkways, their third over Sienna's need for absolute silence while working. They learned to compromise, to communicate, to choose each other even when it was hard. And somewhere in the daily negotiation of shared space and separate needs, they built something that felt like home. Tell me about the painting, Callum said one evening. They were in Sienna's apartment, cooking dinner together. Or trying to. Sienna was terrible at cooking, and Callum wasn't much better. Which painting? The Vermeer, the woman with the letter. What do you think it said? Sienna considered. I used to think it was a love letter, something romantic and hopeful. And now? Now I think it was a choice, a decision she had to make about her future. Sienna stirred the pasta that was probably overcooked. I think Vermeer captured the moment before she decided. The uncertainty, the fear, the hope. What do you think she chose? I think she chose bravery, to open the door even though she didn't know what was on the other side. Callum wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Like us. Like us. Are you scared? Terrified. Good. Me too. They ate slightly burned pasta and talked about their day, about Sienna's new painting, about Callum's photo series on Boston's immigrant communities, about plans for the weekend, normal things, ordinary things, the kind of things that built a life. And Sienna realized that this quiet evening with pasta and conversation, was more than she'd ever hoped for in Vermont. This was real. This was theirs. This was love. 6 months later, they returned to Vermont. The Sterling Hotel looked different in spring. The snow had melted, revealing gardens Sienna hadn't known existed. Flowers bloomed in window boxes. The town square was alive with farmers' market stalls and children playing. Maya greeted them at the desk with a knowing smile. Welcome back. Same room? If it's available, Callum said. For you two? Always. The executive suite felt smaller in daylight. The windows that had shown only white now showed blue sky and green hills. The fireplace sat cold and empty. The beds had been pushed together into one king. It's different, Sienna said. Everything's different. Callum set down his camera bag. We're different. Better different? Definitely better. They spent the weekend exploring the town, hiking trails they couldn't access in winter, visiting the bookshop Sienna had researched but never seen, taking photographs, Callum with his camera, Sienna with her phone. On their last evening, they built a fire, not because they needed to, but because they wanted to, sat in the leather chairs that had witnessed their beginning. I have something for you, Callum said. He pulled out a small wrapped package. Inside was a photograph, the one he'd taken of her that night in Vermont. Working on the Vermeer by lamplight, completely absorbed, present. But the frame was what made Sienna's breath catch. Hand-carved wood, simple and elegant, and engraved on the bottom, not lonely, just present. Callum, I wanted you to see yourself the way I see you. Not isolated, just focused. There's a difference. Sienna's eyes filled. Thank you. There's more. He pulled out his phone, showed her a gallery of new images. Her painting in her studio. Her laughing at something he'd said. Her asleep on his couch. Her existing in moments she didn't know were being captured. I'm building a new portfolio, he explained. Not about empty spaces anymore, about filled ones, about you, us, the life we're making. Can I see them? The full collection? When they're done, I'm thinking about an exhibition, coming home, or something equally sappy. Sienna laughed through tears. That's terrible. You love it. I love you. I love you too. They kissed in front of the fire, surrounded by memories and possibilities. Outside, spring continued its work of renewal. Inside, two people who'd been running their whole lives finally stopped. Not because they had to, because they chose to. The woman in the Vermeer had opened her letter and made her choice. Sienna had done the same, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't waiting anymore. She was home.